certainly one of the showstoppers, the Mustang. It arrived just a few days before the Expo, but it's getting all the attention here at the Expo. Nigel Harris speaking to us. Good to see you, Nigel.
Thanks for that.
It's nice to see you standing with this car. I mean, it doesn't get more special than that for Ford.
Absolutely. I mean, this is a 50-year-old brand for us. It's an iconic car. And I guess it's been iconic in the US for all of that time, but it's interesting just how iconic it is here in India and in other parts of the world.
It has this tremendous heritage and legacy, no doubt about it. What is nice about the car, and obviously of the more recent generations, it's been able to attract a lot of attention from buyers, from enthusiasts in some of the new markets it's gone into, just on its own merit, not just because of the heritage or the legacy, and that's a good sign for Ford.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the platform with the independent rear suspension, it still has that that V8 roar, which is what our customers look for, and it still has the design cues that every Mustang has. The long bonnet, the 3-bar tail lights. So there's no mistaking it for a Mustang. But when you get inside the car, everything's latest technology. It's got Sync 2, it's got the line lock, right, which you can lock the front wheels and warm up the back tyres if that's what you need to do. So it's actually got a lot of technology in it.
I can see the car at the back. I'm getting distracted because there's a guy burning a lot of rubber in all of these on the screen there. The reasons for bringing it to India are sort of evident, and for some time there's been almost a clamor that Ford needs to do this.
Yeah.
I think at every expo there's been this expectation, and of course not having a right-hand drive was the biggest restriction. But do you think that from the time we started asking for it, maybe about 6 years ago, to today, you'll have a more evolved buyer as well for it? Or am I assuming that?
The response we've got so far, I mean, we only introduced this last week in terms of saying that it's coming. The response we've actually got is overwhelming, and these are people that just love performance cars, any sort of performance car. This is in a category of its own, obviously, but they've got performance Europeans, they've got all sorts of things, but they want this car, and because of that emotion. But I think the dynamic is there in terms of it's iconic. And it was iconic not just for Indian consumers, but Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, all of the right-hand drive markets. We realised that there's this really strong brand equity around Mustang, which is why we actually decided to engineer it for right-hand drive. And that's why we've got it here today. It's the voice of the consumer saying, send us one, we want one. It's not fair that the Americans get it all to themselves.
Have all the fun, yeah. Well, we're very glad that it did happen.
Yeah.
One particular, let's say, piece of that Mustang story, and the reason why it became that icon, is also because unlike what some of Ford's competitors in the US were doing, and of course what was happening across the Atlantic, this car represented something very different. It was unique because it was also accessible, besides being a great performer. Do you think some of that gets eroded by the fact that we have these high customs duties, and it almost goes into a luxury space rather than the Mustang space?
Yeah, it does. I mean, it definitely pushes up into the luxury space, there's no doubt about it.
Because that's not what it's meant to be in a sense.
No, that's right. And the duties actually do that, but regardless of that, there is still a market that will buy it. And you only have to get into the car and turn it on and hear and feel that rumble of the V8, and you just fall in love straight away.
No, and I can certainly see you having your hands full with this one, because there's only so many, I'm guessing, that are allocated for India.
Yeah, that's right.
And you're going to go way past that number.
No, we sold out globally with the car.
Exactly. No, and ever since it arrived, it's been doing that in pretty much every market it's gone into. It's a great brand shaper for you as well. How much of that do you think is important for a car like the Figo or a car like the EcoSport?
It's really important because as a challenger brand like Ford, we need to get more people coming into our showrooms to have a look at our showroom. The cars we have now, when you think about it, 5 months ago we didn't have. So we've got the most modern, freshest showroom, including the all-new Endeavour. And to get people in to have a look at this car or to have a look at the Endeavour, which might not necessarily be high volume, they might just want to have a look at it, and then just see how good our other cars are, the Figo, the Aspire, the EcoSport. That has a spin-off appeal. But there's more to it than that as well. I mean, we had an example. We had a customer come in last week. They bought an Endeavour. And he said, hey, what's that car? Oh, it's an Aspire. That would be a great car for my father. And so he bought that car for his father. So you get, by having more of those vehicles on the showroom floor, you can start to appeal to more of the family that come in. So we can offer more to our consumers.
Sure. And of course we vouch for those two cars as well, because they're both recent winners at our awards too, and
That's right.
and they've really sort of come into their own. The Figo nameplate's also now looking very strong for you. There's a lot of competition coming now for the EcoSport. You guys started it, and now you're going to be sort of inundated with rivals. Your strategy to take that on?
So we've sold 2 lakh of the EcoSport now, and our customers have been really happy with the car, right? Very, very happy. And we get a consistent volume every single month, at a consistent revenue point as well. So we just keep on offering the great value for money that EcoSport is. It's a no compromise SUV style vehicle, sub 4 metre, so that puts it into a pricing category that's pretty unique. And so we think as customers look at the new entrants, they come back, drive the EcoSport, get a good understanding of what that 100 PS diesel is like in our car against the competition. They'll come to the conclusions that they come to, but that vehicle will stand up to any of the competition, absolutely no doubt about it.
Do you see though, since you mentioned that specifically about the engine, given everything that's been happening in the country and all the talk in the media as well about diesel and emissions and things like that, and advancing of that deadline to 2020 when it comes to Euro 6, do you see a shift again towards petrol?
No, not really. If anything, we've noticed maybe a couple of points of difference between petrol and diesel in the Delhi market. I think people understand that Barrett Stage 4 and N5 and 6 are pretty efficient and clean engines, right? The bigger issue is the other polluting elements that happen in the environment, the burn-offs and construction. But in saying that, we're working with the government. We know it's a concern. We keep working with the government to work out how we figure out how we bring in Barrett Stage 6, and that's what we're doing at the moment. The key, though, is getting the older vehicles off the road, because some of the older technologies are polluting the environment, and we need to somehow find a way to scrap those vehicles and put the more modern engine architectures in.
What do you think would work in India? And I know this is now asking you more for a personal opinion than a professional one, but because everybody's sort of a little bit worried about sticking their neck out on this, but do you think a scrappage policy with an incentive is the way to go? Because it's difficult, especially in India, the culture now, it's difficult to just tell people to scrap old cars.
It's to me it should be voluntary, and it should be incentive. You get a lot of people whose livelihoods rely on the vehicles, right? There's a lot of industry that's reliant upon it, so you've got to give them a reason or help them move from that very old technology to a new technology. So personal opinion, that would work the best. And India's the world's largest democracy. People expect no less, right? They like to be given the chance to choose. And so an incentive to the customer is the way to do that. They get to choose.
So on to happier things. The writings on the wall when it comes to your plan for the year product-wise. You've already brought in the 2 new the Figo family vehicles last year. You've got the Endeavour to us at the start of the year, and then there's this. What else becomes a priority for you in 2016?
So we had the product transformation. Every vehicle on our showroom floor is new, and arguably are segment leaders. Right? So when our customers come and experience the vehicle, they'll understand just how good the vehicles are. Now we're going into a transformation around cost of ownership. There's a perception that we're too high, and we've very aggressively made sure that the cost of our parts and service are lower, and actually against the mainstream competitors. That's one thing.
And that's been ongoing for the last few years, but do you think it sort of comes to a critical point in 2016?
It's building momentum now, but really what the trigger point is now is we're offering parts through independent third-party distributors. And that's evidence to customers that we're being open and they can buy those parts from the open market. And that's important. That's what they were telling us they wanted. And then the third piece is just making sure that we love and cherish our customers like family. Because we're pretty unique. There's only a few manufacturers that have this, but the founder of our car company car and truck company, his name is actually on the front of our car. The great-great-grandson of Henry Ford, Bill Ford, is our chairman. So we've got to do a really good job because it's the Ford name, the family name that carries our vehicles. So we're really working hard on that family experience with our customers as well. That's what we're concentrating on this year, so people will start to notice us, not just for great products, but a really good experience as well.
Congratulations on the portfolio. It is looking really strong this year, and I hope the rest of that works out too.
Thanks for that.
Thanks for spending time with us today.
Thank you. Cheers.